Hello, welcome to the Courageous Self-Care podcast. I'm your host, Christina Marlet. On the show, we talk about self-care that moves the needle. And it is not self-care that is all geared towards one thing. Like, it's not self-care is, I get a massage once a month and then I'm good for self-care. No, it is self-care that we practice on a regular basis, ideally throughout the day, so that you're never putting all of your self-care eggs in one basket. Because what if you miss your massage? Then you're out to lunch for a whole month, and that just won't do. Now, this self-care is about going inside. It's going deep. It's finding out who you are, learning about that amazing person that is getting so excited to be fully expressed, and going along on that journey. And of course, that's why courage is needed, because when we go to the inside, there is stuff that we do not want to deal with. And that's why it's useful to have a guide. So here I am. I'm your Courageous Self-Care guide. And I also love to get other guides on the show too who align with Courageous Self-Care. So today I have with me Kristen Kancler. Kristen, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here.
Thank you. I'm so excited that you're excited. So Kristen, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you love and what lights you up in a few sentences.
Absolutely. So I am a relationship coach for men who are committed to extraordinary love. So they're successful in their career, in their ambitions. They do their own inner work to be their best, and they want a relationship to match. They want something really extraordinary in their life. And so whether they are single and they're looking to find that woman who's their match, or if they're already in a relationship, but something in them knows that, it's just not fulfilling in all of the ways that they know in their hearts that it could be, I help them create the depth of connection, intimacy, and love that they crave. So I am so passionate about connection and relationships. And so that's something personally and professionally that I'm passionate about.
I love it. And I think that word extraordinary is really powerful. As you were talking about it, I was getting goosebumps, which I call truth bumps. So this is good news for all of us. And I think it's interesting that as a woman, you're coaching men. How did you come to know that that's who you wanted to work with?
Oh my goodness. I love this question because the answer is, I don't even know if it's what I would expect. It's just something that I felt called to. And I think so much of the time, like a lot of the work that I do is helping people get out of their heads, into their hearts, into their body, following their gut, their intuition, and their truth, as opposed to the thing they think they're supposed to do or the thing that makes sense. And I've been coaching for 10 years. It's been an evolution of what I've done and who I've worked with. And everything always made sense, the decisions that I made at first. And then I just felt called to work with men, and men felt like a yes. And I was like, okay, what's this all about? It's something that I just kept following the feeling and trusting my own inner guidance. And then it took my brain a little bit longer to catch up. So it's sort of different than, the usual process of things, but it's just been such this incredible journey. And, oh my God, just the deeper I dive into it, the more exquisite and rich and exciting it is. So I'm thrilled that this is the path that my guidance has chosen.
That is, if you're going to share a story of courage later, but already this is a story of courage. And it's one of the skill sets of courageous self-care is to learn how to access and follow and then act on your intuition. And that takes tremendous courage, because things can be perfectly wonderful and we're moving right along, coaching who we think we're supposed to coach and the information that we're supposed to share. And I had that experience when I was a teacher. I loved teaching. I thought it was the best job ever. And then I wanted to stay at home with my kids. And I thought eventually I would go back to teaching. And then all of a sudden, here I am as a coach teaching about self-care. Who knew?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, not all of a sudden, like 10 years of blood, sweat, and tears for sure. But yeah,
exactly,
not what I anticipated for myself. And I hear the same thing for you.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's definitely a journey. It's definitely an evolution, and it's key to be listening to that inner guidance even when it doesn't necessarily make sense, because when I'm sure we've all had those experiences of the times we've had that trust and that knowing within us, and we've made the other decision that made more logical sense, and there was something inherently off about that. Luckily we get to course correct along the way, but it's like when we make those decisions that are out of alignment with our truth, it hurts, and it is courageous to listen to that guidance and go forward, even when you have no idea what it's going to look like.
Yes, exactly. So we're on this exciting adventure, and part of the adventure involves caring for ourselves along the way. So I love to get my guests on the show to share a current favorite self-care practice. And I think it's important to share what we do for self-care, because we know that we can get manicures, we know that we can get pedicures, we know that we can go for massages, and yet there's so much more to self-care. And I love to hear different people's ideas on what it is that fills us up. So what's something that you love to do, Kristen, that really nourishes you?
I love this question. And one of the things that comes up for me is I've a few months ago, I think, I started this really exquisite morning practice. And I'd had a morning practice many, many years ago. And interestingly enough, it was at a time in my life when things were going really well. And then somehow I stopped doing the morning practice, and things, got a little roller coastery.
Yeah.
And here I am back, talk about course correcting and really recognizing. And the more I do it, just the more powerful I see it is. So first of all, just having a morning practice, but then looking at the things that I do to fill that. So for me, my morning practice is really all about taking the time, and I take a couple hours for this. And this for me is all about going within and nourishing myself from the inside out. And a lot of it is about getting connected to my body. So I'll do a little bit of yoga, and then maybe I'll journal, meditate. And I've also incorporated this practice that is just this super delicious practice of connecting into my body, to my desires, to my magnetism as a woman, and just feeling how delicious it is to be in my body and to move my body and to move within my body. And especially for those of us who perhaps spend a lot of our time as high achievers and in our heads and, planning and doing and making the lists and doing the things, to take this time to just be so incredibly present in my body and tuning into how does it want to move? How does it want to feel? What are the signals and signs that I'm getting? It's just been it's been a total game changer for me.
Ooh la la, that is what comes to mind for that.
Exactly.
Ooh la la and va va voom. So there's some things I want to comment on about that. So first of all, I can totally identify with having practices and your life is going so well, and then somehow you just stop doing them, and then you look back and you're like, what? Why did I stop doing that? Everything was working, I think, as a result of that amazing thing. So I think I'll start doing it again. And I think it's really important to be gentle with ourselves around that, and to be malleable. Like, it sounds like you don't need to have judgment. Like, it's just, oh, that worked, and I think I'd like to invite that back into my life again. And I think as long as we're doing something in the morning and something in the evening to bookend our day, to remind ourselves that we are these amazing beings who have bodies and who have spirits, and to remind ourselves of both of those aspects of ourselves, it really sets the tone for the middle of the day, where we can be highly productive and high achievers and get lots of stuff done, coming from a place of this deep inner nourishment.
Exactly. It's so interesting when I look back, and it's almost like I can never go back, because just the more that I recognize when I used to just wake up and just jump on a client call, or, just get into my computer and start doing things, I wasn't centered and I wasn't grounded. I wasn't in my body. And so I was just sort of like off and running without that. And so to now have this experience of like, oh my goodness, taking time for myself to connect within first, and then I get to bring so much more of myself to my business, to the things that I'm doing in my life. It's incredibly different.
I love that. And I think that's so valuable that you shared that with us. Thank you. And for listeners, I encourage you, like, it doesn't have to be this routine. And I avoid the word routine because it's really, there's so much discipline to it. And I'm not in the army, so I don't feel like I need a routine. I do have a practice. I have a ritual, and to flow within that. So I know every morning I'm going to do something for myself. Sometimes it doesn't all happen at once. Sometimes it's spread out during the day, but I definitely have things that I want, like self-care, rituals, being in my body, like you're saying, specific movements, that I know I want to do during the day because I just notice I feel so much better. And so having the flexibility around it, I think, is a really feminine way, and a way to approach it with feminine energy, where it doesn't have to be bam, 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 bam. Okay, now I'm good. I'm set. It's more like, what within my practices am I going to choose today that is going to nourish me and fill me up? And when can I do them? But yeah, definitely having something in the morning is super helpful to get grounded and centered. And like you said, to be more of who you are when you're moving through the rest of your day.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so that was fun. And there's more fun to come. We're just going to pause briefly for a little commercial break, and we will be right back to hear Kristen's story of courage. So be sure to keep your earbuds in, or your computer on, or however you're digesting this. Keep it flowing, because we will be right back. Hooray! We're still here. You're still here. It is working well today. So, Kristen, I love to get my guests to share a story of courage. And just before you share yours, one of the reasons why I feel like it's important to be in this energy of courage is that, as Brené Brown says, courage is contagious. And courage is so important to move into the best version of ourselves. We're always in this comfort zone, this familiarity zone, and the more we can use courage to move through that fear towards the things that we envision for ourselves, the better our lives get. And I don't know about you, but most times, pretty much every time, I move through the fear and I'm on the other side, I go, oh, it wasn't as bad as I thought. Why did I work it up to be such a thing?
Uh-huh.
So I like to hear these stories of courage and marinate in that energy, because it is contagious. It helps us know, oh, she did that, so I can do that too. It's the Yahoo theory. If that Yahoo can do it, so can I. Hey, I've done that. I didn't even think that was courageous. Maybe I am a courageous person who can do amazing things. So having said that, I would love to hear the story that you're going to share with us.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. And it's so much exactly what you just shared, in being terrifying to do. And then looking back being like, oh yeah. So I recently, in, the mastermind, I did as part of, personal development and growth, we did an ice bath. So for anyone who's not familiar with an ice bath, it's basically submerging your body into a bath of ice water. And for me, for decades, I've had a fear of being cold, like being really cold. And it's come from times where, I don't know if you guys have experienced this, but when you something's like shockingly cold and it like knocks the breath out of you, right? So it's like there's this really like physical response, and I've had that before, and it's like it's just was ingrained in my nervous system as like protect, like never put yourself in that situation. So anything around like being really cold was just a definite no for me. So they're like, hey, we're going to do an ice bath. And I'm like, okay, I will consider showing up for that. And, and I'll keep this short. And just get the key points was, I did do it. And the things that were incredible about it was that, first of all, I was in a community. I was doing it with support. So I had, friends who were in the mastermind with me going first, and I got to sort of watch them do it. And I'm like, oh, that's what it looks like. Okay. So, and seeing them stop a little earlier than they would want it, I was like, oh, I have permission to like not do the whole thing. And, it was just all of these different things that sort of helped unlock some of the fears. And then as I was going through the actual process of stepping in, just being in with my feet, and then going down to my knees, going down to sitting, I had someone like in my ear, like literally next to me, teaching me how to breathe through it, because the breath is what like stops the nervous system from having that attack. And it was just this incredible experience of just having the support, the community, the guidance to walk me through something that I'm certain I wouldn't have been able to do on my own. I didn't know how to breathe through putting my body in a bath of ice. But with all of these different elements, I was able to conquer one of my like deepest fears. And then I did it twice.
Wow.
And then after the whole thing, it was like a couple weeks later, one of the guys who was there was like, you conquered one of your deepest fears, like being in an ice bath. And just like you had said before, part of me was like, oh, that's no big deal. And it's just so incredible what shifts for us after we do something that seems so horrifying. And then we do it and we're like, oh yeah, that's nothing. Or like that, it's so powerful, what we can do when we are courageous and we do things that scare us, and we get the love and support and guidance we need to move through it and see how strong that we really are.
What a great story. I've never had anyone on the show in a year and a half talk about being in an ice bath. It's a first. And I can totally identify with being scared of being cold. That is not something that I love. I've had I had an experience where I don't know if I almost drowned, but it felt like I almost drowned in rapids in a whitewater rafting trip where we were body surfing down a river, and I couldn't get my head above water even though I had a life jacket and I was frozen. So I don't like cold water.
Exactly.
So I am wowed by your story. My husband has done Wim Hof training, and I remember watching the sales video, and I was totally on board until they said cold showers, and I'm like, yeah, I'm out. Not doing it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I admire you. Maybe I'll work up my courage if I'm ever exposed to having to do an ice bath as a breakthrough. I will do it, but probably not of my own volition. But what you do bring up, Kristen, that's a really important point, is we do not have to go through life alone. And we can go so much further when we have someone giving us guidance, when we have a mentor, when we have someone whispering in our ear saying, this is how you go through this tough situation, or holding space for you. And that is something that is so important and integral about courageous self-care, is because the word self is in there, we think we have to do it by ourselves, but actually that's not the case. Every Olympic athlete needs to stretch beyond their comfort zone. And every Olympic athlete does that because they have a coach, they have someone holding space, they have someone who knows the vision, who can keep them on track. And if we want to have Olympian results in our lives as high achievers, which we generally do, we have these big visions for ourselves, it's so important to know that we don't have to do it by ourselves. We go faster and farther when we have a community of support. And so that is something that's super important. I love that you touched on that, because courage is in the best courage and the best self-care is actually in community.
Yeah. That's such a crucial point of thinking of self-care and thinking, okay, so this is what I go do internally on my own in the corner, right? But it's actually, so much self-care is getting support and guidance and love through those tough moments, that we can go further together.
Beautiful. So, having said that brings us into the gift that you want to offer to our listeners, because you don't have to go through relationships alone. It's so helpful to have someone to talk to who's not your significant other, to say, you know what, this is going on. I have no idea how to deal with it. Tell me what to do.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, gosh, no one's really given a manual, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I know that you have both male and female listeners. So if you are a man who knows his value, who knows that you have so much to give, and you want a deeply, deeply fulfilling relationship to match the rest of your life, someone to share your success with. Or if you're a woman who knows a man like this, so this could even be your man, this could be your boyfriend, your husband, or it could just be someone close to you, your brother, a friend, a colleague. And you're watching him struggle in relationship in some way, and you know how amazing he is, you know how much he has to give, and yet something isn't matching up in the way that he really wants. I want to offer an opportunity to get support in order to have that depth of connection and extraordinary love. So I'm offering a 20-minute extraordinary love mapping session. And in this call, we're going to get really clear on what you want, what particular challenges have been stopping you from having that deeper connection and intimacy in your relationships. And if at the end of the call it feels like a fit to work together, we can set up a separate call to discuss your options and how you can finally have that extraordinary love. The love mapping session is an exploratory call, so this 20-minute call is to help illuminate what's really going on beneath the surface. And it's for men who are really serious about breaking free from old patterns so that they can have the love they're really meant to have and be the partner they've always wanted to be.
Wow, that sounds absolutely amazing. So whether you are a man looking for that extraordinary love or a woman who knows a man, often it can be, like you said, your man. It's a beautiful nudge. And I just want to mention, my very first life coach that I had was a man, and he taught me so much about how to relate to my husband that I didn't know. Like, for example, he said, men like lingerie, you should get some. I'm like, what? I never would have thought of that. My husband's like, yay, life coach.
Win. He's like, that's worth anything.
So it is super powerful to have some support in this area. I know it really revolutionized how I related to my husband, having a man teaching me what my husband was actually looking for, because for some reason I didn't feel comfortable asking my husband. It was just helpful to have that outside perspective. And so I know that's what you can offer with this call as well. So Kristen, that's really generous of you to offer that. And you can find the link to this call in the notes for this. This is a podcast. In the podcast notes, you will find that link. You can easily click on it. You can schedule a 20-minute call with Kristen and find out what's been holding you back and what's working for you. And I encourage you, if you're feeling any kind of there's something there, it's energetic tension and I'm scared, go ahead and click the link, because you've got nothing to lose.
Courageous self-care.
That's right. Stepping out into that unfamiliarity zone in the vision of moving into what you actually want out of your life. Yeah. Kristen, thank you so much for being a guest on the show. I really enjoyed hearing your story of courage and your self-care practice and learning more about how you contribute to the world in the unique way that you do.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
I agree. And listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. You can give yourself a giant gold virtual star of Courageous Self-Care for tuning in today. And if you want bonus stars, click the link so that you can schedule a call with Kristen. The super secret bonus stars only go to people who take action. All right. Thank you so much for listening. Kristen, thanks again for being here.
My pleasure.
All right. And I look forward to connecting with you again next time. The show airs usually once a week, unless I'm in dire need of self-care. But you can count on it being here most weeks. So please come back and listen again. Bye-bye for now.